So, first of all, thank you for taking the
You're
time.
welcome. You're welcome.
And I know that you're a busy guy.
It's all right. Busy guy, people have time, you know that, so.
Well, there's so many questions I want to ask you. I'm so curious about so many things.
Me too, I'm still seeking the answers, so it's all right, we're good. We think we know.
Okay, so I'm just going to give you a heads up, and I feel like I'm going to ask you questions that I don't know if you get asked often, because when I read what you write, it's generally in the form of press releases.
Correct.
And those are...
Although I've written 3 books, so.
Okay.
So it goes beyond the press release.
What I meant is that...
Yeah, I know.
Things that are written, in advance, and
Right.
That you have time to respond to, and where you kind of are more in control of the pace of responding to them. So
Not anymore.
the
The world has changed, right?
Okay. So I'm just giving you a heads up.
Okay.
But I feel like this is your job. and
Fine.
So you're well equipped to handle. So
We'll see.
we'll see. Okay. So let's start off with Rupert Murdoch, and he just won this International Leadership Award from the ADL. And I was just kind of curious. I noticed in today's Israeli newspaper, it noted that Rupert Murdoch is a contributor of Benjamin Netanyahu's campaign.
Oh, he is? Okay.
Yeah, apparently so.
Good for him.
Has he been in the past, or is he currently like a financial contributor to the ADL at all?
No. Although, to be precise, we may have honored somebody that he, in order to express his business affiliation or otherwise, may have, taken a table at a dinner. So, but is he a constant, significant supporter of the League? No.
So I was pretty surprised by that award, because from a lot of people's perspectives, it would seem that Fox News and all of New York Post, all of the news organizations that he owns, that they come into a lot of controversy. In fact, a lot of lawsuits by former employees suing them for harassing workplace environment, people claiming that they promote bigotry.
So what's the point?
Well, I was just wondering, how do you respond to criticism of Rupert Murdoch as a person? Is he deserving of an award like that?
We decided to give it. We didn't give it to him for his. I don't know about his labor practices. I guess if you would examine issues of labor practice, you'd probably honor nobody, because at one point or another, there are labor disputes, etc. We honored him because of his public positions on Israel, on the Jewish people, and on anti-Semitism. I happen to, if you read the speech, if you want my speech, we also, I made specific reference to his leadership and immigration issue, which is a very serious issue. And you select the people, you select the issues, and you embrace them. We honored President Bush 1. A lot of people were upset, he wasn't the best friend of Israel, but we honored him because he was very significant in saving Jews. So, you don't go into the minutest details. He's entitled to support any political candidate he wants, here or elsewhere. It's still a democracy, and we don't take political litmus tests. I find it interesting. You're not the first one who's raised the issue. Do you know that he was honored by the American Jewish Committee last year? Do you know that he was honored by the Jewish Federation of New York the year before? And I wasn't aware that anybody ever asked the question, but okay.
Well, you're hearing from me. I would ask the same thing of them, because I know.
Well, I doubt it. I don't know, because the times have changed. Everything now becomes an issue. Everything becomes
Well, my sense is for a lot of people is that if beyond the pale, he called President Obama a racist. Like I find it on his show, but you don't have to go delve too much into that.
You work for Haaretz, okay? Do the owners of Haaretz tell you what to do, what questions to ask me? You think he deals with O'Reilly's program? He has the Wall Street Journal. You think he approves every editorial? That's nonsense.
No, I don't think so.
Okay? He owns a media empire. That media empire goes all over the place. Some people like Fox, some people don't like Fox. Some people like the Wall Street Journal, some people. We didn't give it to him for his. Although we recognized his media genius because he is an innovator in communication. He understood the media in advance. In fact, he changed the Wall Street Journal from a sleepy financial paper to a dynamic whatever. But we didn't. That's not the issue. The issue is the man has a position. The man has a voice, and he's made his own personal decision to stand up for the Jewish people, to stand up for Israel, and that's what we recognize.
I think he actually made personal things, but let's go on to other stuff because there's so much stuff I wanted to ask you about. I know that some of the discussions that you've been having this week in Israel have been around delegitimization of the state of Israel or its character. And I wanted to ask you about an Israeli organization called Shovrei Shtika, or in English, Breaking the Silence. Are you familiar with that organization?
No. I've heard about it, but I'm not very familiar with it.
Okay. So it's difficult for me to ask you to comment if you've never heard of it.
I've heard the name. I know what it means, but I'm not familiar with the organization per se.
Well, I'll just briefly tell you that they are basically Israeli soldiers who served in the Israeli army, who served in the occupied territories, the West Bank or Gaza during the previous Gaza war, the most recent Gaza war. And what they came out as saying is that the houses were needlessly destroyed, phosphorus was fired into populated areas, commanders created an atmosphere that...
So what's the question?
Well, I was wondering, what do you think? Because I know that
Israel is a democracy. It has institutions. People ask questions. The courts act. And as long as it's a democracy, it's fine that they're there. And okay, so.
There's actually a bill right now in front of the in front of the Knesset, rather, by member of Knesset Ze'ev Elkin of the Likud, and basically it would limit the activities of organizations like Breaking the Silence.
Listen, if we were to react to every politician who gets up in the morning and has a weird idea of what he thinks his constituents would love, this is a super democracy here. It's a little harder in the United States to initiate a legislation. So, if we could, no, it doesn't matter, but we can spend 24 hours here talking about legislation that people introduce. We usually take position on legislation when it reaches after the second reading and the government supports it. I'm not going to get into. You can find every idiotic or non-idiotic concept because it's a game politicians play. So fine, there are people who put in to restrict this, to restrict that, to get their uncle, so on. Okay. It's a democracy.
Okay, fair enough. So what I'm hearing from you is there's so many things that are happening. It's not possible to respond to everything.
When it becomes serious, in the essence of impacting on Israel's democracy, on Israel's society, then chances are you'll hear from us.
So why don't I ask you a little bit about the things that you've actually come out and stated, and then I can get some feedback around that. So one of the things that I've noticed that you've written about is that if an organization or a person comes out and says Israel is acting like an apartheid state, that your response, or the ADL's response, has been that's out of bounds, that's beyond the pale. It's completely, that shows that we don't communicate with you or have a negotiation or discussion with you because you're now beyond negotiation or discussion. So my question is, when you have people like Defense Minister Ehud Barak saying that Israel is an apartheid state if the Palestinians don't have no say, when you have Speaker of the Knesset Ruby Rivlin saying the same thing, then how can we castigate people
Well,
facing this?
very easy, because Barak's life is devoted to defend the state of Israel. And the people, most of them who charge Israel with apartheid, their lives are devoted to undermine the state of Israel. And there is a quantitative, qualitative, you look at the totality of the person, of the institution, you make a judgment.
Okay, so it's kind of an arbitrary judgment.
It's not an arbitrary judgment. That's an insulting comment, with all due respect. It's not arbitrary. I stand for an institution. We make judgments. You are making judgments by the questions you ask. So I'm not saying to you these are arbitrary questions. It's not arbitrary. We make a judgment, and you can judge us by the judgment. We make choices and we make judgment.
Okay. So what I'm trying to understand from you is, what is the basis for that judgment?
The basis is our judgment when we feel that this is an unfair characterization. Most of these people who charge Israel with apartheid, I would challenge you to find something that they have said, which they found something positive in Israel, that they value in Israel. Most of these people are out there to defame Israel, to criticize Israel, now to delegitimize Israel. And when they do so, we will take a position. To say that Barak, because he once in a debate, in a discussion issue, said Israel's an apartheid state, to then compare it with that, that's arbitrary. And that's really political, but that's okay.
Israelis say it?
That's fine. Listen, we're not a police institution going out. I don't care what you say, except if you say it on the air, if it impacts and people ask, and if you would ask me, I will make a judgment. You either agree with me or don't.
Okay. So one of the things that I noticed is there's like a book that put out by the ADL. It's talking about like ADL Israel Advocacy Guidebook. Mm-hmm. So I was going to try to get position papers to understand. So you talk about that the label apartheid can't be applied here because it's not a system of legal racial segregation, right? But how is it not a system of legal segregation?
Listen to me. This is really. We believe that people who call this state apartheid are anti-Israel, sometimes anti-Semitic. Okay, I'm not here to discuss with you criteria. You don't think it's an apartheid state? You're entitled. This is I'm not here to tell you my innermost which one. We have a record. We've been out there. We have positions. You may not like them. You may not agree with them. But I'm not here to explain to you what are the specific criteria which came down to say, hey, we believe this is not an apartheid state. Period. Okay. Are there elements in this country that we believe hurt democracy, can be interpreted as? Yes, and we speak out about them, okay? And we will. But anybody who this is not a perfect democracy. There are serious issues in this country. There are issues of discrimination. There are all kinds of issues in this country. But it does not amount to apartheid is South Africa. Apartheid is a government policy to separate, to segregate by the virtue of they are the color, and here we would say ethnicity. Israel is not an apartheid state. Does it have things that we don't like? Does it engage in positions that we don't like? Sure. But in its totality, it is not an apartheid state. Period.